These are the Fantasy Facts presented by Gridiron Experts with your hosts, Pat Loftus and Seth Keller.
Welcome back, everybody. Seth and I have been, it's really been me that's been out. We went through a rough patch here. Kids got sick. I got sick. It's been a rough 2 weeks. So we're back. It is Tuesday. It's a regularly scheduled show at a regularly scheduled time. Seth, how are you tonight?
I mean, you were like not feeling well last week.
I was not. No, I was not feeling good.
And I'm
much better now.
That I can see. Good for you. Luckily, I haven't been sick, but I've just been crushed by work. Like like working in a school right now. It's report card season and it's state reporting season, which is like it's just a whole bunch of stuff, and we weren't prepared for it, which is really crazy because it's like none of it's new. But then it was still like everybody's like, "What do we do?
What do we do?
Why is this so crazy?" But yeah, like that's what my like past 2 weeks have been, and my next 2 weeks all the way up until like Thanksgiving are going to be state reporting and report cards, and getting our schools ready for like parent teacher conferences and stuff like that, which it ain't fun, but it's work, and it pays the bills so that I can do this.
Yeah.
Have these thrills. You like that? I rhymed. Boom. That's just all I'm gonna go with there.
It is good. It is good to be back. Yeah, it's so we actually had yesterday. I did parent teacher conferences for my two kids that are in school, and they're in like kindergarten and pre-kindergarten. So it wasn't much of a conference. It was just like let's bullshit with my kids' teachers for half an hour. It was nice.
That's good.
Yeah. You got to talk to some other adults.
There you go. I mean, we did our kids' parent teacher conference a couple weeks ago, and I have twins that are in kindergarten. And so it was the same type of thing where it's like they're doing great,
right?
Know their colors, they can cut out some shapes and stuff. They don't need the glue.
Here's the real question: like to your teachers, are they assholes? Are they assholes to you? Are they nice to you? Are they nice to everyone else in the school? Because that's all that matters.
Yeah,
it's in kindergarten. As long as they're not assholes, they're fine.
Yeah. No, and it's like that. My wife was like asking those questions, and I was like, "Yeah."
I was asking those questions. I was like, "Yeah, no, tell me if my kid's being an asshole."
Yeah. They were like, she's like, "How nicely do they play with others?" And I was like, "Are they the smartest kids in the school? I think, come on, they should be by this point, right?"
That's funny. Oh my gosh, we have a lot to get caught up on. It has been a busy couple of weeks, so let's get into it. First, we'll say this. Give me a follow because I'm selfish. I'm going to say my stuff first. Give me a follow. I'm at Dynasty_Pat. Seth is at FF the At Home Dad. The show is at GX Fantasy Facts. That is scrolling across the bottom of your screen if you're watching us. If not, go on Twitter. Make sure you start following the show because we're putting out new stuff every week. Both Seth and I'm actually more active on Twitter now. It's like a full-time job. I don't know how you people do it because just doing the show and then putting out like 3 tweets a week is a lot. So make sure you give everybody a follow. Let's also talk about, we still have the 2 promos, right? So we got Viridian Global. Let's make sure we use the promo code FAQS, FAQS, and take 10% off your order from our good friends at Viridian Global, viridianglobal.com. Also, we have an updated promo with our good friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Sign up, use the promo code FAQS. Again, that's FAQS, and they will match up to $100 of your first deposit. So the code here is FAQS, FAQS. It's at Viridian Global and at Underdog Fantasy.
And that Underdog thing is like amazing because you can play Pick'em, which is great. You're doing over-unders on the player prop.
I'm fucking terrible at Pick'em. I realize that. I am really not good at Pick'em. I meant to check how my best ball teams are doing before the show started. So Seth's going to talk. I'm going to look at my best ball lineups.
No, don't do that, Pat, because we're just going to go right into the
No, go ahead. Just fire. Just fire it up. I'm ready. We're good.
I mean, yeah, check out Underdog. Now's the perfect time to do it because, like, if you don't know by now whether or not your team stands a chance or not, you should probably start investing into Underdog right now. Like I said, they'll match up to $100 if you use the promo code FACTS, which means you can play in a whole lot of games between now and the end of the season. But they also have not anything that I'm into right now, but they have NBA, MLB. I think they have NHL in there too. Like they got the whole sports setup for you. It's a good time, and the drafts are always a good time. So if your season is going down the tank, if it's circling the bowl right now, just waiting for somebody to flush it, go ahead, get on Underdog, use the promo code FACTS. You're going to have yourself a good time. So with that, it's time. It's time to pop one open with the opening question.
I like how the roles have been reversed, and I'm the one drinking tonight, and Seth isn't.
I know. It's one of the few
usually,
times.
Well, I will say I have my big cup of water here too, but usually it's Seth drinking and me.
I don't have anything. I don't even have a glass of water. I am so ill prepared at the moment. But
news desk, we have a lot to talk about. So we're going to cover just the stuff that happened from this past week. We're not going to go back. We're not going to, talk to Eric Henry, Calvin Ridley. So we're going to jump right into the Week 9 stuff. And we're going to go right to Carolina with Sam Darnold. It's a scapula fracture. Out several weeks. So look, excuse me, this is why I don't drink during the show. PJ Walker is going to start Week 10 and beyond. Honestly, he probably should have started 2 weeks ago. Sam Darnold has been doo-doo. I don't know what to make of this from a fantasy perspective because DJ Moore has just cratered, but they've got CMC back. I mean, CMC is a must start. I think DJ Moore is now a must start. He was trending downward with Sam. I don't know. It's tough for me because was it Adam Gase? Was it Sam? Who is it? It's
I think it's
more towards Sam Darnold.
Honestly, I think it's a both. Like there's enough evidence to say that Adam Gase is not good, and I think at this point there's enough evidence to say like Sam Darnold is not that good either. Like he was good in a couple of games where he could dump the ball off to CMC and let CMC do whatever. But
I still DJ Moore through the first 4 weeks was top 3, top 5 in they were targeting him a ton. So I don't know what to make of it.
And over the last like 6 weeks, he was what though? Like that's what I mean. Like there's enough evidence to say that Sam Darnold is not that good.
CMC's value doesn't change a whole lot. Mm-hmm. Maybe you drop down DJ Moore a bit. I mean, PJ Walker, who knows? I don't trust PJ Walker. I'm probably not going to start him. I might try to pick him up in a deeper league, but I'm not going to start him. Not until at least I see what he's going to try to do.
Yep.
So, all right, let's move over to Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, it's a right ankle sprain. They're calling it day-to-day. He got stepped on by his offensive lineman, so he'll be in the injury report this week, but he probably isn't in any danger of missing any time. So maybe it impacts his mobility a bit, but it's Trevor Lawrence. It's the Jaguars. Somehow they have 2 wins this year.
Mm-hmm.
It is
one of them coming against the Buffalo Bills this week.
Yeah, that was I just for like a hot minute, Twitter was blowing up because Josh Allen sacked Josh Allen, and it made everyone's head like explode for some. I don't know. It's like people forgot there were 2 Josh Allens in the league.
So, first of all, that wasn't even that crazy in the moment when somebody first said it. It was like, oh, Josh Allen, Josh Allen.
Funny.
It's like worse than a dad joke. It just gave you the little,
it can't be a sensible
and then having
chuckle.
a million people do it, it's like this face. Like it's terrible. But that game was terrible. So I guess like people needed something to give them excitement. The game finished 9-6. Vegas made all of their money back there. Because that I don't think anybody was projecting the Jags to beat the Bills. Like that was just out of nowhere. So yeah. Anyways, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
You probably weren't starting him in a 1 QB league, and in a 2 QB league, you were probably strapped and had to start him, but you weren't happy with it anyways. So, not that big a deal.
Nope. Let's go down to Miami. I switched up the show. We're going to talk about Tua real quick.
Right.
So Tua was a late scratch this past week, and they're coming out today on Tuesday saying that he is a game time decision for the game on Sunday. And they said if the game were today, Tua would not play. Brissett would be the starting quarterback. So take that for what it's worth. We're 5 days away from the game, and they're already talking about Tua being a game time decision.
Yeah, and I wish they said he had a broken finger, and it was like, didn't you know that though? Like he was the starter all the way up until an hour before the game.
Yeah.
It felt like,
and
then it was like, nope, he's an emergency. He's active, but he's just active as an emergency backup quarterback, and it was like, wait, when did this happen?
Yeah.
And like I picked up Tua in a couple of leagues because I needed a QB for the week, and I was like, all right, here we go. Fire up Tua.
Yeah.
And then an hour before game time, and it was like, oh crap, now what do I do? And it was not pleasant.
I don't know how or why they're coming out on Tuesday saying if the game were today, he wouldn't play. Like, just list him as limited participant in practice. Like, I don't know. Something's not right down there, and I don't know if it's Miami, if it's Tua. I can't quite put my finger on it yet because Miami's just not. I don't think they've done right by Tua really since they drafted him. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. This one's a bit crazy, and so the NFL has fined the Green Bay Packers $300,000. They've also fined Aaron Rodgers and Alan Lazard $14,650 each for attending a team party. I guess this is as hard as the NFL is going to come down on Green Bay and Rodgers for his stance on COVID and the vaccine and everything. I don't know what to make of this either because he came out and said some odd things, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor, so maybe he will take my advice because he seems to not like to listen. I don't know. It's just an odd thing all around.
Yeah, and I'm going to paraphrase and poorly quote an article that Will Chamberlain wrote about Aaron Rodgers, and the article was actually really good because it talks about like what his impact is, and like it's a real short read, but basically he goes, Aaron Rodgers is going to Joe Rogan for medical advice, and he's like, that's like having a cardiac disease and seeking advice by going to romance novelists because they know the ways of the heart matters. They know matters of the heart. And it's like, you know what? That's really like a snide comment, but I love it. And yeah, like it makes no sense, right? Like I get people having a divergent opinion. That's good most of the time. But when it comes to things like this, he's what I think is setting the most people off is the purposeful misleading comment of, oh, I'm immunized. Well, yes, we're all immunized. Well, not all, but almost anybody that attended a public school has been immunized because you have to be in order to attend public schools. At least I know that's a thing in New York State, right? So almost everybody gets their mumps, measles, and rubella shot. Almost everybody gets their polio vaccines. Like almost everybody gets their vaccines. That's why we don't see these diseases on a regular basis, because people get the vaccine. And I don't want to go down too much of a road here, but
yeah,
him misleading people, I think, is what really set people off. And then putting people, like, if he's possibly spreading the coronavirus because he's, out talking without a mask, doing press conferences without a mask. It just reminds me of the basketball player that, like, at the start of COVID, like, touched all the microphones
and
then was COVID positive, and then
Yeah.
everyone's like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
God, I wish I could remember who
I can't
guy's name,
either.
but like that. It's the same avenue for me. It's not the same thing, I know that, but it's the same avenue. Like, you're putting people at risk for no reason, and with the, like, purposeful deceit of, like, yeah, no, I'm immunized. I'm good. Like, to me, that's what is really setting people off and makes me kind of upset that Aaron Rodgers isn't getting kind of more of a slap on the wrist.
Right.
But it is what it is.
Agreed. All right, enough. Oh, we're going from one COVID to another. Down in Cleveland, Nick Chubb, Demetric Felton both tested positive for COVID. They now have to show 2 negative tests before the game on Sunday. And I believe those tests have to be 24 hours apart. So it's a very tight window for that to happen. Not saying it can't happen, but if you have Dearness Johnson, or somehow Dearness Johnson is still on waivers, get him immediately.
Yeah. I mean, he filled in real nicely
very well.
Chubb and Hunt first were out. He had himself a phenomenal day, despite both of us on the show doubting him. He did a phenomenal job. So absolutely, if Ernest is out there, grab him.
Was I messaging with you during that game? Because I know every time CJ Uzoma, basically, like, the wind blows in his direction, I send you a message. I just can't remember if we were messaging about Dearness Johnson as well.
Probably.
All right, let's go to Arizona. Chase Edmonds. I mean, really, all of Arizona seems to be dealing with these injuries. So you got Chase Edmonds, a high left ankle sprain. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. Kyler Murray is still... he's testing the ankle out, so who knows? And Hopkins has a hamstring injury, which, they were late scratches on Sunday, so we know Edmonds is out. So go ahead and fire up all the James Conner, because holy shit, Conner looked...
what a day!
Yeah, he had himself a day.
21 carries, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns. 5 for 5 receiving, 77 yards, and 1 touchdown. He did put the ball on the ground once, but 26 touches and, 3 total touchdowns, over 150 yards. Like, have yourself a day, young man.
Have a day.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and he could probably do it again. Like,
yes, he can. I'm confident. I'm confident he'll do it again.
Yeah.
All right. This is, you know what? I want to talk about this just a little bit, because this is going to come up later in the show. Zach Moss concussed week to week. We're going to leave it there, because we're going to circle back and come back to Zach Moss. More concussions. Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, which is a shame because they both looked really good this week. They are both in concussion protocol, so monitor, but they are likely week to week. I guess Brandon Bolden. Is he the only one left?
Yeah.
JJ Taylor.
Yeah, JJ Taylor, and I mean,
I really don't like any of them.
Yeah.
To be honest, So we'll leave it there. Stay away from New England unless one of those two is somehow back. Right. We are going to go over to wide receivers. DJ, this one kind of surprising because it wasn't. I mean, it was a hospital ball from Darnold, and you could see he was in pain. He's probably going to play week 10, but he's probably in a shitload of pain right now, and no more Sam Darnold. So you've got a backup quarterback, a rib injury that you took from a nasty pat. Proceed with caution with DJ Moore is probably the best I can tell you right now. I'm not a doctor, so I've never dealt with a rib injury either, luckily. So
yeah, I've dealt with a rib injury, and it's terrible. Like it hurts to breathe. Depending on the severity of the rib injury, like it can really hamper what you're doing. And I mean, I'm not. It's only a rib contusion, so I'm not like that afraid of it. I think what's more frightening is the Panthers in general right now. Like Sam Darnold was terrible. PJ Walker is, I don't think an upgrade. I don't think necessarily like not a big downgrade, but also like not an upgrade. Like they're pretty much the same. I feel like in terms of what that offense is going to do for fantasy, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not happy for DJ Moore, and the rib contusion just makes it that much worse.
Let's go to Tennessee. Josh Reynolds asked for and was granted his release from the Tennessee Titans. Does he end up? He wasn't the biggest name wide receiver. And actually, I realize now we skipped the opening question.
Yeah, I even played the drop for the opening question, and then you just went straight into the breaking news, and I didn't even get to play the breaking news. Way to jack up the show, Pat.
I'm new.
Little rust. It's a little rust. It's okay.
I'm new. Yeah. All right, so Reynolds was released from the Titans. I don't believe. Let me do a quick search here.
I haven't heard any news of him getting scooped up yet.
No, asked for granted. I don't see anything about him being claimed. So Josh Reynolds is officially free to sign with any team in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, where would you like to see Josh Reynolds signed?
I mean, if he made his name, right, with the Rams, with Goff as a slot receiver, short, intermediate yardage, like that's what he was doing, right? And honestly, there's not a whole lot of teams I feel like that have kind of that need. I feel like a lot of teams kind of have that spot filled. It's the alpha wide receivers that teams are missing. And so just throwing another wide receiver onto a team, like I don't see it kind of being that beneficial. I would say though, like some teams like the Giants, who just seem to be getting riddled with injuries.
Right.
The Saints riddled with injuries. I mean, hell, maybe Houston, throw them in Houston because there's just like nothing there. Like it's not good for fantasy.
No, not at all.
Like, maybe it could be because it's right now the Houston offense is Brandon Cooks.
Yeah,
that's it. Just Brandon Cooks. And so maybe it would be good for fantasy for Josh Reynolds because he could, maybe open some things up coming out of the slot. But there's really not a whole lot of places where, I feel like teams are strapped for a slot wide receiver.
No, not off the top of my head. No, I agree with you there. Let's go over to the Jets real quick. We'll wrap up the news here. Denzel Mims is in COVID protocol. That honestly doesn't matter because he has like 7 catches on the year. Corey Davis should be back. He's been dealing with a hip injury, so hopefully, you know what? I didn't see anything on Mike White after getting hurt Thursday night. Seth, have you seen?
I was like, that's a really good guess, Pat. He has exactly 7 catches. Did you look that up ahead of time?
When I put it in the show, I saw it, and I think I was like, oh, I'll make a funny joke, but he has like 7 touches. So no, but Mike. So the Mike White injury from Thursday Night Football, I don't see anything about.
Let's see. According to Roto Baller, Mike White could make another start in Week 10. It was his forearm.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching the football game with a pair of PTs, physical therapists, and they were actually like analyzing what they were testing him for.
Yeah, because he was added like he was like showing like he was like motioning and here like
yeah,
so he was giving pretty like specific
right
stuff
and so
on his injury.
It looked like nerve damage is what they were saying, is that like he probably hit like one of the nerves in his forearm, and that's why he couldn't like he couldn't feel the ball in order to put the touch on any passes. It would be cool to kind of see if they were right here. But it looks like Zach Wilson's probably going to keep on the sideline until he's fully healthy. Robert Saleh said it would be irresponsible to put him in. Okay. And I mean, who was it? Josh Johnson is just not like he played decent.
He played decent when you're down 30. You really can't do anything. Like just fucking sling it and see what happens.
That's what I mean. Like he played decent in terms of fantasy, but you really don't want Josh Johnson being the leader of your football team, especially through the beginning of his time there. He just looked terrible. Like he was missing passes. He wasn't able to read what the defense was giving him, and he just looked really bad. So, Mike White looked a lot better. And even in the start of the game, he went 7 for 11, 95 yards and a touchdown. Like,
it was a great start.
That's a great great setup for the game. And then the most Jets thing of all Jets things could happen. When they finally have something nice, they break it.
Right. All right. Last little bit of news to cover. We're going to talk tight ends. We're going to talk Janu Smith. And so he was dealing with an AC joint sprain, and then he left Sunday with a similar injury. So he's going to pop up on that injury report. With Hunter Henry now emerging there, I probably wouldn't feel good starting Janu Smith, injured or not. So for the time being, put Janu Smith on your bench.
Yeah, remember when everyone was that excited for Janu Smith, and you would have thought Hunter Henry
just fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah, I was gonna say, was running around on the football field with a walker, but yeah, it was. It's kind of that fantasy season where it's the bigger, faster, stronger, more athletic tight end is taking a back seat and now injured, so taking in even more of a back seat.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we did things a little backwards. We should have done the opening question. We did the news first. So now we're going to do the opening question.
Or should I do the drop for the opening question now? I'm going to do it just because I make the goddamn thing.
It's time to pop one open with the opening question.
I fully remember you doing this, and I believe we'll check the tape, but I'm pretty sure I even cheersed you, and I even went off on that little rant about I'm drinking and you're not. So I blame me drinking. So the opening question comes from me, and it has to do with Odell Beckham Jr. He was granted his release. He cleared waivers. He is free to sign with any team in the NFL. His priority is Green Bay, and I don't believe he said that. I think it was his people that came out and said he likes Green Bay. So kind of a 3-part question here. Where should he end up? Where do you want him to end up? And where will he end up?
where should he end up? I mean, honestly, right where he's at now, like
As a out of the league.
yeah, like all right, that's probably a bit harsh. I'll reel that in a little bit.
Mhm.
He just has not been he hasn't been effective for years. Like he has an okay game here or there, and then
Yeah.
he ends up and I can't say he ends up being a distraction because I'm not in the locker room. I don't know what he's doing, but it definitely seems like there's tension that's created between him and every quarterback that he's been on a team with. It seems like, his it's easy to point to like his sideline antics and the silly stuff that he does being a distraction. Is it really? I don't know, right? But it does seem like he is not in his best football shape. Like his first couple of years with New York, and this is now a while ago, was his best he's ever been. And honestly, at this point, like, is he going to come back and be
I
the guy
mean,
that we used to talk about that was throw him a 5-yard slant and let him take it to the house? He hasn't done that. He's
so
done it in years.
so last year, 2020, got hurt. Can't really hold that against him, although he was objectively bad
If
through
he's
7 games.
always hurt,
He was
you can
bad
hold
through
that
7.
against him.
So let's go back to 2019, first season in Cleveland. He played 15 games. He had over 1,000 yards. He only had 4 touchdowns. Right, his last year in New York, he had over 1,000 yards. He had 6 touchdowns. 2017, he was hurt. And then 14, 15, 16, those were like peak Odell Beckham. Obi, like he was the man. So I know you didn't fully answer the question yet, and I jumped in here, but the talent it's still there, right? You can't deny the talent is still there. I think he personally needs to go to a team that's not going to be afraid to push the ball down the field. We didn't see Baker Mayfield do that a whole lot. Now, did Baker Mayfield miss him a few times when he was open? Of course he did. But you could watch any game on Sunday and say, oh, deep threat, wide open, quarterback missed him. That happens all the fucking time. You can't say Odell or his dad can't really say he missed him when he was open because it happens every fucking week with every quarterback and every wide receiver. So I would like to see him go to a team that is not afraid to push the ball down the field. I would have loved to have seen him in New Orleans with Jameis Winston. Mm-hmm. Hell, I'd love to see him in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. You got to find these teams where the quarterback's not afraid to push the ball down the field.
Yeah.
And that kind of limits where he can end up. But I would love to see him end up, and I actually would hate it too, Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, because now there'd be no more excuses for Aaron Rodgers. You're going to have Devontae Adams and Odell Beckham Jr. It's pretty fucking good. Yeah. I don't want to see him end up there because I don't want the Lions to have to play him twice. I wanted him to end up in Detroit. That's where I wanted him, was Detroit, because they have no talented wide receiver. He would have come off relatively cheap. Yes, $7.5 million. But if he fucks up, you cut him again. It's not that difficult. Yeah. Like he's still relatively young. I mean, yes, he's 20. He just turned 29. The injury history is scary. But the Lions are rolling out me and you at wide receiver almost every week. It's really bad.
I'm a pretty goddamn good wide receiver. Don't you put that on me.
Okay, fair.
Don't you put on me calling me one of the Lions wide receivers.
Touche. So I would have liked. I think he should end up in Green Bay. I wanted him in Detroit. Where will he end up? Probably somewhere like New England or the Raiders.
I was just gonna say I got a good one, and it's the Raiders. And the reason why the Raiders make a lot of sense is look at what Derek Carr did with Nelson Aguilar last year in terms of his deep ball, right?
Yep.
Odell is good at the deep ball because he gets open downfield. It's not like he's a contested catch downfield type of guy. He's not like Mike Williams where it's like throw the jump ball up to him, but he's good at the deep ball because he gets past people, kind of more like Deshaun Jackson was good at the deep ball because he gets past people, right?
Yeah.
And Derek Carr was, and I forget what the stat was, but last year with Nelson Aguilar, he was one of the league's top deep passers. And I forgot what the exact stat was that backed it up, but I want to say Nelson Aguilar was like one of the top deep receivers because of that connection there. And, you know, the Raiders are no stranger to headlines. And at the moment, really negative headlines. You have the Gruden stuff. You have the Henry Ruggs stuff. You know, maybe the Raiders are not, you know, not willing to kind of pick up Odell to pick up more bad headlines, or they might be like, hey, it can't get any worse than what we have already. Like, let's scoop them up and go and
see what happens.
In terms of a football team, he actually makes a pretty decent fit there. And the Raiders are contenders at the moment.
Yeah.
Like
that's the other thing.
Yeah. I mean, the Raiders are 5-3. Like that's a contending team right there. And, you know, he makes the Raiders better if he brings that 1,000-yard receiver type of game with him. But if he brings the injured, angry, distraction, negative headline getting, if he brings that receiver with him, then
then he'll be out of the league in 2 weeks. Yeah. So how about, I mean, he just cleared waivers, 6 hours ago. Where do you think he ends up? Twitter world, not you, Seth Keller. Twitter world. Where does Odell Beckham Jr. end up? Where do you think?
I mean,
tweet at us, tweet at the show.
I think it's the Raiders. Oh, you mean not me? You were asking. No. Got it. Never mind. It's late here. Don't mind me.
You're good. Not yet. For those of you listening, where does Odell Beckham Jr. end up? Oh boy. All right. Let's talk week 10.
Ooh, week 10.
Yeah. We're okay. So first things first. We have 4 teams on a bye this week. So the Bears, the Bengals, the Texans, the Giants. And let's be honest, you're not starting anybody from the Texans, so who gives a shit? The Bears, the Bengals, the Texans, the Giants are on a bye this week. Make sure you check those lineups. Take out anybody that might.
Weren't the Bengals just on bye?
No. Oh,
Think about it. In terms of fantasy, they sure as shit were, because they were terrible.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow, 2 points. Come on, Joe Burrow.
I mean, do we really want to turn the microscope towards your Dallas Cowboys?
I mean,
they may as well have taken the week off.
They were better than the Bills.
Touche.
But week 9 was crazy. Thank God it's week 10 now, so that we can put week 9 and me losing by in a non-decimal scoring, right? So if you get like 7 yards, you don't get a point. You don't get like 0.7.
No, that's dumb.
Yeah, well, it's been that way. Been that way for a while. I lost by 0.5 because a catch is still 0.5. That decimal counts. 0.5. A single play stopped me from winning. And it's like that just explains my luck, like in week 9, but also just in general in this league. And it's not pleasant. But week 9 is over. It's week 10. It's week 10.
So remember that big rant that I went on about the Dolphins and Tua and not playing?
Mm-hmm.
If the game were tonight, they play Thursday, not Sunday. So that explains it a bit more.
There you go, Pat.
I didn't look at the schedule that much before the show started. So my bad. Makes a little more sense why they're coming out on Tuesday saying Tua's questionable game time decision. So let's take away all those bad things I said about Miami.
Let's jump right into the Thursday night game because I think it's an interesting one.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, you have Baltimore traveling to Miami. Baltimore has been a pretty decent defense against quarterbacks and wide receivers, and not so much against running backs.
Yeah.
And like
Miami looks like a sieve.
Yeah, I mean the Miami just rolls out the red carpet for whatever you want to do. Like you want to have a good game passing, have at it. You want to run all over us, go for it. You want your receivers to have a day? Come on, bring it down.
Rashad Bateman season kicks off Thursday.
I mean, honestly, I think the players that you would want to start in this matchup are all startable. You have Lamar Jackson, fire him up. Marquise Brown, fire him up. Rashad Bateman, fire him up. Mark Andrews, fire him up.
Devonta Freeman, Lev Bell, keep them fucking going.
Fire him up. And on the flip side of it, you're not playing Tua. You're probably not playing Brissett. Maybe Waddle. Maybe.
I'm gonna roll out all the Mike Gesicki
and Gaskin. Like.
Yeah, I mean Miami. Sorry, not Miami. The
Baltimore.
The Ravens are just not. They're not good against the run for whatever reason.
Yeah, running tight end. They're not as good against them.
No, not at all. Interesting. Yeah, I know. I'm firing up all of the Raven skill players with confidence because Miami is just a sieve. And then I'm looking at Gesicki and I'm looking at probably Myles Gaskin as well, even though I don't like Myles Gaskin.
No, and I mean it's he is very hit or miss, but this is the type of game where he could hit because one, the defense is they're not stellar. It's not like Tampa Bay's front seven that you have to be so worried about. And that offense. Who else is that offense going to run through if Tua's not playing? You have Gesicki, maybe a Waddle or something like that, and then you have Gaskin. Like get him the ball, in a bunch of different ways. He's a competent wide receiver, even though he's not he's not getting the Dalvin Cook type of reputation. Granted, it's fair for him not to, but he's a decent pass catcher as well as a decent runner. Like fire him up, let him do what he needs to do. I think he could have himself a nice little game there.
I am liking all my shares of Mike Gesicki a lot this week.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk. I want to talk about your Dallas Cowboys this week because that's a game that looks ripe for Atlanta to come in because that Dallas defense, if I'm reading this right, that Dallas defense, they're not as bad as Miami. I mean, but they're give up the 8th most points to the quarterback, and Matt Ryan is playing hot. They give up the 7th most points to the wide receiver. So you got Gage, you got Olamide Zaccheaus. I'm going to count Kyle Pitts in there because but oh, don't forget Cordell Patterson. How can I forget Patterson? He's a Swiss Army knife. Dude does it all. So, I mean, I'm liking really anyone but Mike Davis. Even though Dallas is not great against the run, Mike Davis has just not been – he's been a huge disappointment this year. Yeah. So, I'm liking all of those shares of those Atlanta offensive players. Flip side, Dallas needs a get-right game because they got just fucking embarrassed.
Yep.
By Denver. So you look at a team like Atlanta that is pretty good against the quarterback. I imagine Dak will step it up, and I imagine he will be ready to go. Zeke should have I'm expecting a bounce back game here. I'm hoping is going to be the shootout that I think it's going to be. I don't know what the over-under is.
It's the highest over under of the week. Yeah. I've seen 52. I've seen 53.
Oh yeah. I mean that's in 30-27. That's a 30-24. I easily see that happening. I like this game a lot. Like I'm prioritizing my Atlanta players in all formats.
The Cowboys are giving up 9.5. I'm looking. Let's see. This is actually on PFF right now. Just the easiest sports betting odds that I've I've seen. Right now it's the Cowboys minus 9.5.
Really?
Yeah. And the
Oh, boy.
over under at 52. So one of the larger spreads and the largest over under. And actually there's a lot. Actually, I take that back. There's a lot of really high spreads this
So
week.
I'm on Bovada, and I see Dallas minus 9 and an over under of 55.
Yeah.
Wow. I wish I knew more about sports betting, because that seems like a game that is ripe for some money to be made with that spread and that over under.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I'm liking that game. I'm going to try. I live in Michigan. It is deer hunting season in Michigan, so I will actually be in the woods most of the weekend and into Monday and Tuesday deer hunting. So I will be checking my phone periodically, but that's a game I'm going to be monitoring closely, because I have a lot of shares of. I'm rostering a lot of Falcons and a lot of Cowboys across the leagues.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be another good game for fantasy. Like I think
I hope so.
The Cowboys defense, and just to talk a little bit about week 9 one more time, the Cowboys, they set themselves up for failure in terms of motivation and in terms of like momentum, right? And I know nobody that's like looking at numbers wants to hear something about like momentum, because it's very difficult to capture and quantify. But the Cowboys' first drive got to 4th and 1. And instead of kicking a field goal, which should have been a chip shot field goal, maybe not a chip shot, like a 30, 40-yard field goal, but in the pros should be a made field goal, they decided to go for it, got stopped, and I think Denver was able to score on that possession. Then on the next possession, Cowboys drive and get to 4th and 2, bit further of a field goal, but 4th and 2, go for it again, get stopped again. And at that point, you've basically sucked like the momentum out of the team. And I want to say the Broncos were up like 14-0. They were up like 14-0. Like, I think it was at the end of the first quarter. The Broncos were up 14-0. And at that point, like you're making your own team one-dimensional. I think they went for 3 4th downs, I want to say, and didn't convert any of them. And even in terms of their 3rd down conversion, which they were either leading the league or very high in the league, they were not. They weren't converting on 3rd down, and so I kind of hope that Mike McCarthy takes a step back and goes, you know what? Probably shouldn't have kept going on it on 4th down, like a 13-year-old playing Madden against his buddy. Like, let's try and like think about like how can we do things slightly different, right?
Right.
And I'm all for going for it on 4th and 1 at times, but there's also like, let's break the ice. Let's get points on the board. Let's put our defense in a situation where they don't have to feel like they have to make up for the offense's blunder, right?
Yeah.
And that type of stuff just kind of knocks the team down. And for me, I think the Cowboys. I do think the Cowboys rolled the Falcons here. I do think it's a bounce back game, but I think it's a game where Cordell Patterson's going to have himself a good game. I don't trust the wide receivers that much in Atlanta.
I mean, I trust Pitts, I trust Patterson, and then there's a huge break, and then it's Russell Gage.
Yeah.
And that's about it there. So, all right, one more. What do you think? You got another one in mind, another game that you like this weekend?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a one-sided game, but in terms of a bounce-back game, I expect the Buffalo Bills to get all the way back to better because they're traveling to the Jets, and the Jets with or without Mike White, and he seems like their most competent quarterback. I guess they're no Jacksonville, but I don't think they're going to beat the Bills, right? I think the Bills get all the way back, and I think the Bills take out all of the pent-up aggression of
I hope
that
so, 'cause-
Jacksonville game on the Jets. And I could see the Jets, limping out of this the same way they limped out of that matchup with the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills' defense is a very good defense. This is a game where I'm not starting any Jet if I don't absolutely have to. I'm not starting any Jet, but I'm firing up all the Bills. And even if Zach Moss can't go, I'm firing up Devin Singletary as well.
Yeah, yes.
Because in Zach Moss's kind of absence, he was able to get some more work, and that's a spot where the Jets have been god awful. And if Singletary can't have a good game against a god awful Jets run front, then he just moves that much further down in everyone's perception of him.
And man, I had that game tagged as well as a game that I was looking forward to watching, and it was more for the Bills and a get right game because the Jets they look kind of lost, especially now without who may be the best quarterback on that roster, Mike White. At least for now, without him, it's a tough climb to play against the Bills because the Bills have the best defense against quarterbacks, the best defense against running back, and the best defense against wide receivers. So they are a tough team to play against from fantasy and a real life NFL perspective. Yeah. So it was more to watch that game for the sake of the Bills to see what that offense could do. I'm going to pivot here and talk a little bit about the Jags and the Colts because I'm looking at your fancy spreadsheet that you put together here to, defense schedules and home team, away team. So Jacksonville is at Indy this week, and the Colts are a sneaky bad defense, if I'm reading this correctly. They give up top 5 points to quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. So, even a hobbled, they're not fully healthy Trevor Lawrence has potential here to put up points. Because they have some weapons at wide receiver that they're rolling, Marvin Jones and Laviska, and now Jamal Agnew is apparently a thing. And at tight end, the new acquisition, Dan Arnold, Jacksonville has weapons now. This was a game I was like, oh, it's Colts Jags now. Fuck it, that's gonna be a blood. No, look at this going. This could be a real football game because Carson Wentz is looking really good.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor is the dynasty RB1. Michael Pittman is emerging as the alpha there. Mo Alley Cox, Jack Doyle. It's all starting to come together. And yes, it's week 10. I would hope stuff's coming together by now, but that's a game that, 2-3 weeks ago, you look at that game like, nah, fuck that. I'm not watching that game. That's going to be terrible. Well, now I'm looking at it going, wait a minute. That's actually going to be a pretty good game.
Yeah. And I'll throw one more name in there.
Sure.
Actually, two more names in there. Zach Pascal and Nyheim Hines. This could definitely be a game where, JT just runs over the entire Jacksonville team, and that's kind of what I would expect in this game. But this could also be a game where Nyheim Hines gets a little bit more work because, hey, let's just keep handing it off. And we'll give JT a couple extra, plays on the sideline, let Hines in there for a little more. Hell, against the Jets, Taylor had 35 points, and Nyheim Hines had 21 points, depending on your league scoring. So, pretty good there. Zach Pascal had almost 10 points, but his big thing is he's getting 7, 8. He's getting a decent number of targets a game. He just needs to turn them into something, and he hasn't turned them into a touchdown since week 1 and week 2. So against a team like Jacksonville, maybe this is the opportunity to find the end zone. And so he's a guy that, startable in PPR, not so much in standard leagues because he's getting, 3, 4, or 5 catches for 50 yards. But if he can find the end zone.
Right. Shall we round out the show with our favorite segment?
What's your favorite segment, Pat?
The Fact Attack. We're going to put 5 minutes on the clock. I have a few questions from the Twitter sphere that I want Seth and I to discuss. So we're going to start with our good friend Clark at Imperial T. He's asking, who is the most droppable in a 10-team league? Zach Moss, Boston Scott, or both? I'll go first. I think it's Boston Scott, just because there are more running backs ahead of Boston Scott on the depth chart, even and especially when Miles Sanders comes back. Whereas Buffalo, you have Singletary, then Moss. Yes, I know Moss is concussed, but he's still one injury away from being a starting running back. So Boston Scott is more droppable.
Yeah, and I agree with you there because I agree with you with Boston Scott being droppable, but I honestly push a little bit more towards the both of them here. I feel like Zach. Wow, I feel like Zach Moss. Zach Moss is like he's almost just as droppable. The concussion here, the split time with Singletary, maybe he's good, maybe he's not good, maybe he's good, maybe he's not good. Like, I would hold on to Zach Moss over Boston Scott, but if you said Zach Moss or what, like Nyheim Hines, I'd go Nyheim Hines. Zach Moss, or I'm trying to think of other guys in that kind of realm.
Yeah.
And
don't worry about it. Let's move on. Yeah. We're gonna go to at Bailey FFB. This is Dynasty PPR. I don't know if it's this week or rest of the season, but are you going to start Rondale Moore or Elijah Mitchell?
Mitchell.
I was going to go Rondale Moore.
I go Mitchell until Jeff Wilson.
He was activated.
It was his first week coming back. Yep. I'm starting Mitchell. If Jeff Wilson comes in this week and I get slapped in the face because I started Mitchell and it's a Jeff Wilson week, it is what it is, but I'd rather roll out Mitchell as the main running back there than Rondale Moore, who's not even the main wide receiver in
fair.
Whatever. Fair. But if this is a dynasty question, probably Moore.
From at Dynasty Boyd, Dynasty League here, are you? Again, I don't know if it's rest of season. I don't. Terry McLaurin or Stephon Diggs. Not a lot of details behind it. So I'm going to go Diggs just because he's tied to a really good quarterback right now. And the question is who is going to be under center for Washington moving forward. So I'll go with Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, and I think it's Diggs also, but I definitely see there being weeks where McLaurin outplays Diggs in terms of fantasy, at least. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From at Dare Kamazar 2 PPR League, we're talking this week. Jeremy McNichols versus the Saints or J.D. McKissick versus Tampa Bay?
McKissick.
Agreed.
Yeah,
McNichols was a big flop last week.
Yeah, and honestly, AP got the valuable goal line touches, and Deonta Foreman, who ACL injury back with the Texans, I don't remember how many years ago, kind of cursed out his
Achilles.
That's what I said, wasn't it?
I thought you said ACL.
Oh, I meant Achilles. If I didn't say it, I think I did. But both of those two, they fit more of what the Titans do in their running game than Jeremy McNichols ever did. He's more of a scat back type of wide receiving back, not the Derrick Henry. Let's pound it until the defense breaks and work the play action off of that. And so I don't see that being a good option there. Whereas McKissick is a pass catching back going against Tampa, who's not as good against pass catching backs, really good against those try and pound it up the middle type of backs that, AP and them that I was just talking about would struggle immensely against Tampa Bay. McKissick won't. Gibson will struggle if he plays. Patterson will struggle if he plays, but McKissick should have himself a decent game.
All right, last one from @FantasyFF Freak. Standard League, rest of the season, Adam Thielen or Michael Pittman?
Oh, perfect timing. Rest of season, I'm going Pittman because I feel the targets, and you said it's PPR, right?
Standard scoring rest of season.
Ooh, that makes it a little bit trickier, but I'm still going to go with Pittman without as much confidence, though, because he's the main guy there. He's getting the targets. He's getting his way into the end zone. Adam Thielen has pretty much been relegated to a touchdown-dependent option right now, which standard, great. Just fantasy in general, great. We want touchdowns from everybody on our team. But he doesn't have the work that Pittman does. So I'm going to go with Pittman because he has more volume, should equate to more yards, and probably more touchdowns in the long run.
Yeah, I like Pittman there as well. He is the guy, the alpha there in Indy, whereas Thielen has to contend with Justin Jefferson. So give me Michael Pittman over Adam Thielen.
Don't forget Tyler Conklin, too. He's a real big
pride of Central Michigan University. Fire up chips.
Buffalo chips.
Stop it.
All right, well, that was the
that was a great show coming out of a little hiatus.
Yeah.
Covered a lot of information. Make sure you give the show a follow. We're going to put a lot more stuff out. Give the show a follow at GX Fantasy Facts. Seth is at FF the At Home Dad. I'm at Dynasty_Pat. We do have the promos going, so make sure you use the code FAQS. That's FAQS. For Underdog Fantasy, they'll match up to $100 of your first deposit. Use the same code FAQS with our good friends at ViridianGlobal.com. Take 10% off your total order. You get that right? I feel like I messed that one up.
That was good. Good stuff, Pat. Way to go.
It's been a long time. I haven't done this in a little bit. So it's good to be back. A lot of good stuff tonight. Make sure you give everyone a follow. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. And
be on the lookout for Pat's been doing a really great
job. I'll let Seth pump this up a little bit.
The players in the games that are coming up. It's been 2 weeks of us trying it out. If you like it, send us a little love. Let us know that you enjoy it.
If you have questions,
let us know too.
If you have questions, fucking ask. Like, it's not that hard to comment on it. You think I'm right? Great. You think I'm wrong? Tell me why you think I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So
it's all about the conversation,
that's
man.
That's right. If you have questions about you want to be in the Fag Attack, send me and Seth a question. Send it to the show. Yeah. Just dip that toe in the water's warm. It's fine. Don't be scared.
And a lot of the people that have done it send us more questions now because we answer them, and it's a good conversation. So
we try to give you good, honest advice. So hopefully, more people listen.
Yep.
Not just Clark. Not just you, Clark. I know. Not just you. Not just you. All right.
Catch
Good night, everybody.
Side.